If you have something on your heart and that you feel like you're hesitant about sharing with the world for whatever reason, right? Just know that somebody else is waiting on you to do what you are supposed to do so they can do what they're supposed to do.
What up, fam? Welcome to another episode of Life Beyond the Game. I hope you're enjoying this podcast as much as I am. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. If you are new to the show, I am so grateful you're here. I'm really excited about the way this show is just impacting those who come in contact with it. It's just really cool to hear all the feedback, and some of the conversations have just really been deep, heartfelt. I'm learning a ton, and I hope you're learning a ton too. Today's guest is Brandon Coleman, also known as Soul Cole. He played in the NFL for a few years, and he's got a really cool story. I connected with Brandon a couple of years ago. I actually had him on one of the first iterations of Life Beyond the Game before I discontinued it for over a year. And it was really cool to get him back on the show and talk about all of the growth that we've both been through over the last year and a half. And I'm sure if you're anything like us, that you've been expanding and growing and connecting with deeper parts of yourself as well. And I'm just really grateful to have a man like this in my life. He's truly inspiring. His story in the NFL is one that's really, it's an underdog story. And I've known I had a few teammates like Soul Cole that came in as free agents, college free agents. He actually thought he was going to get drafted, ended up going undrafted, which is a crazy story that he shares on the show. And then getting an opportunity to go to play for the New Orleans Saints with Hall of Fame quarterback Drew Brees. And as he shares, going in as a college free agent in the NFL is the odds of making the team are slim to none. And even if that, very, very challenging. I think throughout my career, there's only a handful of my 8-year career of college free agents that actually ended up working their way into making the team. And, you know, he came in and worked his ass off, made the practice squad, and then he ended up having his first opportunity to play. And, his first touchdown story is really, really cool. He shares that as well. He didn't have a long career, but he had an inspiring career, and his story is just really, really cool. And I know you're going to be able to take a lot from it. And then his journey post-career, where he's really just been evolving as a man, as a spiritual being. He's a yogi. He's a facilitator. And he's beginning to really tap into his desire to use the frequency of sound for deeper connection to self and to the world and to the energy that is greater than the self. And he's an incredible man. And he came out with a really, really cool concept too. It's out now. It's been out for a year, and it was cool because he just launched it last time he was on the show. And it's a meditation mixtape, and it's a very unique and creative way to mix music, sound, and meditation and guided visualization into a really, really cool experience. We'll put a link for that in the show notes as well. And I really hope you enjoy this conversation with my brother, Soul Cole. Before we get started with the show, I don't know if you noticed, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you can't see it, but I got a little nose ring. If you're on Spotify, you can turn the phone, if you're listening on your phone, sideways, and there'll be a video. Or you can go to YouTube. Got a little nose piercing. I'd love to hear what you think. And also want to share about the Heart Collective. This is the last week. I know if you're a regular listener to this show, I talk about it before every show. And this is the last week that applications will be open. Over the coming weeks after that, we'll be accepting applications to review them, but we are in the process of bringing the members together. And the first third of the membership is filled, and we're in process of filling the rest of the community up for this founding membership. There's going to be 40 members, and we're bringing together high-impact leaders, entrepreneurs, creators, visionaries, those who are really desire to connect with like-minded, like-hearted people who have the ability to create impact in their own lives, in the businesses that they lead, or the positions that they have. And the members and the magnetism and the people that have been drawn in to this community already, I am absolutely blown away. It is an incredible, powerful group of humans. And the intention of this community is really to bring together just really high caliber individuals who are passionate about building a more beautiful world, passionate about leading from the heart and facilitating real change in their own lives, in our own lives, and bring in our collective influence, impact, energy together so that we can facilitate greater impact in the world together. And the way we're doing that is through an initiatory process. So this first year, this first founding cohort is going to build the foundation, the nucleus of this powerful community. And the way we're cultivating the bonds within this community, within this tribe, is we're going to do an initiation out on the river. I've been doing these wilderness expeditions the last couple of years out in Utah. So I got 2 permits this year, one in August, one in June. And we're going to have 20 spots each. And we're going to go out in the river for 4 days and just deeply immerse ourselves in nature. And there's just something so beautiful about being out on the river, just the metaphors of nature and surrendering to the flow and being connected to the frequency of presence and being able to just slow down in this busy world that we live in, especially for creators and entrepreneurs and those of us that are really passionate about building impact in our lives. It can be a lot to hold and a lot of energy, and can lead to stress, burnouts, overwhelm. And so there's a lot of opportunity to really just remember why you're doing it, to slow down and to find stillness within yourself, and to initiate the energy of our hearts so that we can support one another in bringing that energy out into the projects that we're working on and feeling deeply supported by like-minded peers and surrounding yourself with incredible humans. I'm really, really excited about the way it's coming together. I would love if you are feeling any inkling of curiosity or a pull within your heart that you want to learn more, or you've been hearing me talk about this and you just haven't stepped across the threshold or pulled the trigger on applying yet, go check it out. There's a link in the show notes. There's more information on there. Would love to see an application come in from you and see if this is a good fit for you to join this powerful community of individuals. And we're just getting started. There's a lot of really cool things that we're going to create together as this community continues to take shape. It's so much more than just the individual transformational process that we're going to go through. It's about bringing this community together for greater impact in the world. I love y'all. Enjoy the show. So Cole, what's up, brother?
What's going on, Joe? How you feeling?
Man, we just did those few breaths we took were just so powerful, man. I mean, it's crazy, even remotely. I'm doing most of my podcasts in person now, which has been fantastic. And, even to do a remote one and get you on the show and to be able to tap into the frequency and the connection, even through the screen and the energy of that, it's just, I'm feeling really good with that breath, man.
Yeah. We connected in that breath.
Yeah, man. It's been cool to chat with you before the show and get caught up a little bit, man. It's crazy how much life has happened since I've relaunched the podcast. And, for those of you that don't know, I had, beginning of the pandemic, I actually launched 2 podcasts because I had so much time then. And one of them was called Life Beyond the Game, and the other one was Quantum Coffee. And I did about 30 episodes of Life Beyond the Game before, probably like maybe 5 or 6 months before I ended up stopping doing that one and put all my energy into Quantum Coffee. And B. Cole here was one of my guests, and we were just reflecting on how much life has happened since you've last been on the show, man. Isn't it insane?
It's amazing to see the journey, the growth, this roller coaster of events that have taken place along each step, man. So I'm glad we're able to circle back around and catch back up.
Yeah, man. Let's start with the journey as an athlete. Playing in the NFL and having this dream of making the big time. And all of our careers end up differently. And it's been cool to do this podcast and talk to all these different types of athletes and their journeys, and specifically football players, because it obviously, hits so close home to me, and how many journeys and athletic careers, they don't ever really turn out the way we envision them and have a dream of, making a 10-year career, all pros, Super Bowls, like all these things, and having to get to a point where you don't really achieve the things that you set out to, and having to let those dreams go in a way. So talk about that dream of football. Where did that genesis of that dream really take shape?
Just like most kids, on the playground when I was 6, playing flag football. That's when I felt free. That's when I felt most like me. And I used to carry that same spirit, from into high school, into college, and then, eventually into the pros, just letting that kid play, right? Never forgetting that this is a game, that it should be fun, that I should be passionate, that I should have joy, and it should, make my soul smile. And then that's, in the beginning, that's what it was. And then when I got to, it's funny, at the time we were recording this, we're going into draft week. And I remember the anxiety that I was feeling leading up to draft week. Someone who was projected to go between the 3rd and the 5th round, and the fast forward to end up going undrafted. Like, there was so much anxiety and there was so much emotion in that time period that, it was hard for me to even process in real time, because things happened so fast. When the draft is over, I'm filled with emotions of disappointment, of, maybe a little bit of regret that I make the right decision. The feeling of embarrassment from my family, my friends, my school. I'm thinking it was, I had put all this pressure on myself to fulfill this dream, right? To see my name go across the bottom of that ticker, and it didn't. And then I had to process that, emotion, because I was so attached to a specific outcome that it had to look a certain way, right? But I'm so grateful for the journey that I did take, because it allowed me to appreciate it so much more from having to, go the road least traveled, right, as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, man, that's tough, dude. Because there's only, I think, like 250 some odd players that are drafted, and
yeah, like 257, 247, something like that.
Yeah, man. Did you have? Because a lot of people, I mean, mid rounds is a pretty good projection. Early on, it's like you should get drafted, like according to the projections, and just so many variables, different things happen. Did you have a party or a gathering, friends over, family over for that experience? And did that make the experience that ever more challenging?
Yeah, so obviously I didn't do anything that first night, for first rounders. But the second day, I did have a small gathering. Remember it like it was yesterday. A small gathering, intimate family and friends and godparents. We all went out to dinner. Right, we had made reservations at Fogo de Chao. Nice. I remember this was the first time I got a chance to sit at the head of the table, right, with my father still being there. Normally that's his position when we're at an outing. And I'm sitting at the head of the table. I remember I had 2 phones at the time, one, for the agents and the teams, and, my other phone, and I'm just waiting, I'm in good spirits. I'm at the beginning of the dinner, and, things are flowing. They bring the food out. Everything looks amazing. Then I'm getting, certain calls, but it wasn't the right call, right? Coaches would call, say, hey, man, we still see you on the board, or we still interested, but it wasn't that call. And then it got later in the rounds, and I'm looked at my father, and I realized that it wasn't about to go down. And I was like, I just made a look. And we just left. Like left the whole dinner party. He went and grabbed the truck. I got in the truck. We went to the crib, and I didn't say any words. I just realized it was starting to sink in that this was not playing out the way that I envisioned it. And I felt like, an embarrassment having all my family come out to enjoy this moment. And, we didn't get it. I remember standing outside in my backyard. It was, springtime, weather was nice, and all I was doing was crying. Tears coming down my face. And I'm just staring at the trees in my yard, just like thinking about all the hard work that I put in, sacrifice to get to this moment, thinking what more could I have done to make myself, a better option to, be selected. And then probably not even 5 minutes goes by and I'm processing these emotions. That's when my phone started going off again, just like that. And
time for free agency.
Yeah, they talking free agency. And then they want to figure out like, all right, what's your interest in coming to this team? What's your interest in coming to this team? And I had about 12 teams trying to figure out where I wanted to go. And now I'm realizing that the ball is now in my court, which was, something I wasn't mentally prepared for. But then I had to start to make, I had to make a decision, like with the information that I had. And ultimately, I ended up choosing New Orleans because they had a Hall of Fame quarterback. They had a dome. I was tired of playing in the cold. I wanted to make sure that they had the same offense that I was running in college. And then they also had a good track record with bringing in and keeping undrafted free agents on the roster. So that was also a dope opportunity for me, and it panned out well. But that was what that process was like. I did have a small family gathering, but they stood by me. You know what I'm saying? They still loved me with unconditionally through that moment. And yeah, it's just another part of the story.
Yeah, man, it's powerful. I'm curious it's a really powerful moment when you shared your father let you sit at the head of the table. Was that something you guys discussed, or was it this energetic, like, passing of the guard moment?
It was just an energetic passing, right?
Wow.
He kind of just looked at me, head nodded to the like that's your seat. And it was just like a passing of the torch. And for me, that was a huge deal. I really felt like, damn, this is a special moment. This is the first time it's happened. And, I'm in, my early 20s. So it's like, wow, like to be present and aware of that passing of the torch was special.
That is so special, man. What a roller coaster of emotions in like a 24-hour time. Like getting this
It's crazy.
This nod of approval from your father, taking the head of the table to, moments later towards the end of the dinner, like getting the energy of like, hey, there's this, it might not happen, and you guys going home. And was there any disappointment felt from your father? Did you feel like you disappointed your father? Maybe not necessarily him putting that on you.
I felt like, well, let me be clear. I don't feel like he was disappointed in me. I don't feel like anybody who was there supporting me was disappointed in me. I felt like I disappointed everybody and like let them down. I feel like they were all looking to me to get that moment, right? But at the end of the day, they just wanted what was going to make me happy. They just wanted me to be happy. And so when they got to the point where they started seeing me real sad, and they were sad and they were hurt, and then because we just so connected, on a heart level that it was like they could feel that. And I'm someone who wears my heart on my sleeve. So, that was, I think at that point, before that point, it probably could count on one hand, probably 3 fingers how many times I've cried, leading up to that point. But at that point, I probably had so much like backed up that it was just all flowing out at once. But it needed to though.
Mm.
It needed to. So that was also like, you know, a healthy release.
That's powerful, man. Yeah, it's like there's so much energy built up into that and so much disappointment. Like I can feel it because like I went through my own experience of it and just the roller coaster ride. And so having to hold that disappointment and the energy of like, fuck, like it didn't happen to moments later feeling the power of free agency and everybody wants you. And it's that energy switch of, holy cow, I went from just feeling just like rejected pretty much to now everybody kind of wants a piece of me and being able to was there tension holding both that and then the energy of being wanted, or did it shift totally, or was it both present at the same time?
I think it was present at the same time. And for me, that was so confusing. I think the emotion that I was feeling was confusion because I didn't yet understand the business behind the decision, like, you know, from where, you know, the owners and the teams were sitting. I was just looking at it from my point of view. And my point of view was, well, where was all this energy during the actual draft? Like, why are we now just waiting to the end to show interest?
Yeah, if you really wanted me, you should have drafted me.
Yeah. So that was confusing to me that it was, you know, everybody was calling and it was, they, you know, putting pressure on me to make a decision, you know, literally within 30 minutes. So I was just...
How do they do that? Was it like, you got to decide now where we're going to pull the deal?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was like, all right, the agent called me. These are the teams that, you know, that have reached out to us. Here's what we think a good fit could be. You know, ultimately decisions up to you. And here are some of the, you know, the factors. And I do remember just, you know, looking at some of the other teams. I remember Miami was one, right? And I had to sit there and think to myself, let's say, let's call it 21. I'm 21, 22 years old at the time. And I'm just like, I'm not sure if I'm mature enough to go to Miami as a rookie, you know, with the Dolphins and be in that environment.
Was that just because Miami's a party city? That's like the downtown, too many temptations.
Yeah. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not sure if I'm ready to put myself in that situation. So I'm going to pass on Miami. But I realized that was the reason why. Like I was like, I don't want to put myself in that situation where, you know, it could be very tempting.
Yeah, you wanted to focus on your game and football and
for someone in my position. Now, could I have done it? Of course. Right. But I'm glad I didn't choose that at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Wow, what a journey just getting into the NFL. I mean, that's a big thing, man. So choosing New Orleans and you know, all pro Hall of Fame quarterback Drew Brees, really successful coach, successful team, you know, culture of winning. What was it like stepping into that locker room as a rookie the first time?
It was definitely an honor. I remember the first time I saw Drew's locker. I was just like, you know, I was real, I guess you can call it giddy. I was, you know, like super excited, like a little kid, like, wow, like just looking at, you know how the veterans, they have all the jerseys in their locker. They have all the, you know, all the shoes, equipment. They have everything in their locker. And then me, I just got one laundry loop of workout clothes, a pair of cleats and some gloves.
Yeah, it's like the vets, they make their home in there and don't get too comfortable.
Don't get too comfortable, right? Because this is a revolving door. So I think when I first walked in the locker room, it was definitely a lot of veterans in there, seasoned guys who I respected, right? Guys like Marcus Colston, guys like Ben Watson, and they established, you know, the culture in that locker room, and it's something I'm always grateful for.
Talk about going into a pretty veteran-heavy, already established team, because I had the same thing in Atlanta when I went there. It was an older team. They'd been together for a few years. They'd been finding success. The offensive line specifically was an older group. Like they'd been playing together for 3 years as a starting five. And so as a 21-year-old kid going in there, even though I was drafted, I still felt this real challenge of earning their respect of the team. And it's not until you get that chance to actually perform on game day when you're actually having to make plays that you really like start getting that respect. So talk about the challenge of going in, especially as a undrafted free agent, really having to make a name for yourself right away, or potentials of never having another opportunity.
Right. And so for me, that opportunity, came in mini camp and it came in training camp. But at the end of that, I didn't quite make the cut, right? I had earned the respect, but I didn't quite make the cut to break that 53-man roster. Coach pulled me to the side, and let me know that he has a vision, for me in this program to continue to develop my skill set mentally and physically to be able to catch up to the speed of the game. I think that's really what it was. Like that transition from college to the NFL is there's a gear that you gotta get up to speed, right? And for me, that in college I needed the developmental year. That's why I redshirted, and I understood that this was history repeating itself for me. So I didn't look at that as a failure. I looked at that as I've been here before. I know how to overcome this, and this is what I need to do in order to have the same result. So to stay focused, stick to the plan, and it's going to continue to work in your favor, and it did. And so having that, I think I earned my respect that year on the practice squad because I remained on the practice squad for the whole year. Some guys, they bounce from practice squad to practice squad throughout the league, but staying on the practice squad the whole year, the guys, the veterans, they got a chance to see me compete in practice on both sides of the ball, right? Because you scout team, you playing both sides of the ball, you doing all the special teams. They got to see me compete. They got to see the type of guy I was, in the locker room, on the field, off the field, the character that I was bringing consistently. And I think coming back into OTAs the following year, that's when I started to get the confidence in how I played and my swagger. And then, fast forward to the next training camp, and I got the 53-man roster. Like the guys definitely, embraced me. They was, they could see that I had earned my stripes, and they were ready to let's go play. Let's go make this happen. Let's go win.
Fuck yeah, man. Well,
Yeah.
Talk about how it must have felt to be working for 2 years and then not getting drafted and having to really earn that respect. Because that's the long game, man. That's
the
insane.
long game. That's the long game, right? I literally had to get it out the mud, but for me, that molded me into, the man I am today. Having that grit, having that that desire to, to continue to show up day in and day out, and realize this is the long game, right? And no, it didn't look like how you envisioned it or how you dreamed about it, but your foot is in the door. A lot of people would kill to trade places with where you are right now, and I didn't want to, waste that opportunity. I didn't want to make any excuses about, I didn't get drafted because of X, Y, and Z. So what? So what, bro? You're in the locker room, and once I understood that there was a clean slate. Once I, didn't matter where you were drafted, first round or undrafted. Once I understood it was a clean slate, once you're in those doors, then it was all right, it's a new game, right? It's a new game. And it just became a mentality thing, right? How can you now, play the hand that you're dealt? This is the hand that you're dealt. Now, how can you find a way to win with this hand?
That's so powerful, man. Talk about, did you, going into that training camp, was it pretty known that you were going to make the team, or were you still kind of waiting around your phone on that last weekend?
I had to fight. It was not a guarantee going into that next training camp. It was a dog fight. But I still felt confident. I felt way more confident than I did that first year because I had a year under my belt, a year in the system,
Had a little
a
more
year.
clothes in your locker room, at your
Yeah, I
locker,
had
a few
way
more
more
pairs of
clothes.
shoes.
Yeah, I had more chemistry
Mm.
with the team, especially with the offense, right? Getting reps with the ones, making plays in camp, right? We had a saying, make a play a day, keep the reaper away. Make a play a day, make a play a day. And everybody will be like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, just
Just
for
make
people that he's referring to, the Grim Reaper, which we used to call scouts, who would come tap guys on the shoulder and be like, "Hey, coach wants to see you. Bring your playbook," and then you
bring your
just know you're going to
playbook.
get cut.
Mm-hmm.
And so making plays, especially as an undrafted younger guy, you have to continue to prove every day that you belong in that building. Or when they have to make a roster move, you don't want them to come poke
Looking
you
for
on the
you.
shoulder. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful, man. Holy cow. So did someone call you when you made the team, or did you just make it through the final cuts and then show up on Monday of the first season, make the 53? How did that feel?
Man, what happened? I realized I didn't get a call.
Because you were like, if I get one, that's a bad thing.
Yeah. So, because the year before I had got a call. So this year I didn't get, I'm waiting by the phone and I'm just like, all right, I think the time might be up. I think I might be safe. I think I might be safe, Mom, Dad. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think we did it. And that was just like a huge sigh of relief, bro. Like, I was like, the weight of the world was off my shoulders. And I'm just like, man, can't nobody ever take this away from you because you earned this moment, right? This was not given. This was earned, truly.
Damn, son. That's like such deep respect for that story, dude, and the courage it takes and the full circle of feeling the disappointment and then getting an opportunity. Like that's what they always say is if you get your foot in the door, can you earn it? And you did. And that must have felt so good.
That's it, bro. And I feel like that it plays to my advantage because, right, if I put my foot in the door, that's a size 15. I'm creating space with a size 15, right? I'm not just getting in there with a size 9.
Yeah, you got a size 15, son? As a receiver?
15 as a receiver, bro.
How tall are you?
I was 6'6".
Oh, damn, son. We need to get in person, dude.
I know. Yeah, so I'm coming in with big skis.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, so talk about a little bit of your career that you're making it, finally getting an opportunity. I'm sure you're more focused than ever really having an opportunity to play in the games now. Talk about your career a little bit and then kind of leading into the end of it.
Yeah, so I think that first year I'm obviously nervous. I'm obviously going out there, anxious about the opportunities to actually like be on TV. Not even being on TV. It was more just about like just doing my job, right? Playing the game that I've always played, that the way I know how to play it, right? And everything else is going to take care of itself, right? And not allowing the moment, whatever it is, to be too big for me. And just being the opportunity just to be in the stadium, right? Score touchdowns in the Superdome. I remember, bro, my first catch was a touchdown from Drew Brees.
Your first catch ever?
Ever.
Talk about that moment. How did that feel? Holy cow. Because that Superdome was crazy.
I almost forgot. But this time it was an away game in Arizona. We was in Phoenix. So we I think this was the beginning of the season. So my the first pass he threw to me was like a comeback on the sideline, and it was low outside. I dove for it and I dropped it. Right. I closed my eyes, tried to make the catch, and it didn't. I was like, dang. You know what I'm saying? So I go back to the huddle and I'm trying to talk myself out of it. Like, all right, he's not going to throw me the ball anymore. I gotta, go do something else to get back, in good graces. Because it's never Drew's fault; it's my fault. That's
was he pretty hard to play for in that way? Was he really challenging his receivers, or?
Nah, he definitely would challenge you. But he expects us to make these catches.
Yeah.
Right? We're professionals. He expects us to make these catches, and I respect that. Right? I'm out there for a reason. And so he comes back to me later in the game, and he just we're in the red zone. He throws a simple flat route, to the sideline. I catch it inside the 10. Now here's where it gets like Madden-esque, right?
Yeah.
I hit the circle button, the spin move on the Honey Badger. A spin move on Honey Badger, lose my balance, and I put my arm down to get myself back up like a three-legged dog. And then I dive from like the 4-yard line, like go-go gadget arms to extend the football and hit the pylon, roll out of bounds, signal is good, right? But then it goes under review. So now my heart is like really jumping, really like, I'm like, come on, don't take this away from me, dog. Cause this could go down as a first catch and it's a touchdown. And so I remember it was a long review process. Long story short, they came back and it was like, call on the field stands. You see the biggest grin on my face once that, cause I'm like, man, I made it. I really made it. You really can't tell me anything. In my mind, I was ready to retire. I tell people, I was like, this is the perfect story. I went from undrafted free agent, practice squad. Now I earned a spot on 53-man roster. Now my first catch in the NFL is a touchdown from a future Hall of Fame quarterback. And I just had the cherry on top. I got the spin move on a Honey Badger and like just, make it real dramatic. I was like, this is amazing.
God is good.
All the time.
Oh, dang. So that's that's like obviously a pinnacle moment in life.
Yeah.
How did the rest of your career turn out after that?
So the rest of that season, I think we ended that season 7-9, right? We didn't make the playoffs. The following year, I think we hit that same spell again, 7-9, right? But then going into that 2017 year, things we had a new energy. We had we knew we needed to get over that hump because my practice squad year, and then those next 2 years we went 7-9, 3 straight years, no playoffs. This next year, that's when it all clicked. We ended up going on at least an 8-0 winning streak that season.
Damn, that must have felt good.
Fuck yeah!
This is your fourth year.
Fourth year. This is my fourth year. So it's like I'm a redshirt junior all over again, and I know this is like when I get that confidence, when I get that swag. I've been in the system. Now keep in mind, I'm the last one on the team from my class. Everybody who was drafted and undrafted from the 2014 class was either out the league or on another team.
It's usually like 25, 30 people, right?
We were probably closer to like 17, 18. Uh-huh. We probably, 18 probably.
Wow.
But I was the last one left. I was the last Mohican. So when I came in to that year, I had the chip on my shoulder. And like I said, I had that confidence. And I'm a very intricate part in the offense that allowed, Kamar and Ingram to run wild that year. Open up the passing lanes and continue to, put points on the board. Like I said, we're going an 8-0 winning streak. That felt great. I had never been a part of an 8-0 win streak before at any point in my career, high school, college, or the NFL. And so just to have that experience, something I'm extremely grateful for. And then the end of that season is where things started to take a turn. I had put so much wear and tear on my body over the years, and I really wasn't connected to listening to my body. That mind-body connection wasn't, where it is now. And I was programmed to push through discomfort, to push through pain, to continue to play through things because, right, if you the best ability is availability. And so if you start to, end up in a training room, then somebody's going to take your job. And for me, as an undrafted free agent who's playing on 1-year league minimum contracts every year, I didn't have a lot of security. I didn't have that that the first round draft pick receiver would have, So I realized that I need to continue to push through and be on this field so I can give myself that opportunity, to earn, that contract to where, I have some security. I continue to push through some discomfort. I have, most football players, at some point you get a stinger in your shoulder and your neck, and you just kind of like, you got to shake it off. You can get back out there. And I've been doing that for so many years and so many games. And then I didn't realize I was continuing to make it worse. And I really didn't understand the magnitude of it really being nerve damage. I just, I didn't know how serious it was. I had continued to play through it. The end of that season, I had nerve damage all down my right arm, down to my three fingers.
Did they do like an MRI? How did they finally say, hey, this is nerve damage? Was it just because it kept happening?
That didn't happen till after the season. So during the season, I had just kept numbing it like before the game, right? To do everything I could, take everything I could to try to numb that feeling.
What was some of the stuff you're taking, like the pain pills the docs would give you and everything like that? Or was there specific stuff for the nerves?
I remember I did a couple epidurals,
Damn, like in your neck?
Nah, in my like lower back.
They would put the epidural actually in your lower back to help with the pain that you're experiencing up here?
Mm-hmm.
Must have been bad.
Yeah, it was. And then I forget what the other medicine was called, but I was taking that before, the games as well.
It's like Toradol or Tramadol or something like that.
Tramadol, yeah. I think it was. But, throughout the game, it would continue to wear off, right? And I would end up feeling it. And for me, it got so bad, I started fumbling the ball, right? Because I couldn't feel the ball leave my hand. My grip was done for.
Damn.
So I had fumbled twice. In one game. And we only recovered one, I think. And for me, mentally, I was just like, bro, I never fumble. Never. Like, that was never an issue, never a problem in my career at any point. And the fans, they don't know. They don't care. They boo. You know what I'm saying? And I'm
You're getting a lot of backlash, huh? Were you feeling that in the moment at the game?
Yeah, it's pressure. Yeah. It's pressure when you fumble the ball. All eyes are on you, when you fumble. It don't matter. Like, everybody's like, oh, no, because it's a turnover, And that was bad. And I didn't want to say anything. So fast forward, we go to the playoffs. We got a home game. First playoff home game I'm a part of. I'm ready. We're playing Carolina. It's an opportunity to sweep them, though, right? We've beat them twice in the regular season. Now they come to us for a third battle, and it's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. But we ended up prevailing. But I had fumbled again that game, right? And we recovered, thank God. But it was that moment. That was the last game I played, and I realized that I did not want to be the reason that my team lost because of my ego and my pride. Didn't want to, say anything about, what I was experiencing because I didn't want to I don't want to make excuses for why I'm fumbling. And so I ended up having to get that looked at after that game.
Did the coaches come up to you and say, hey, like, what's going on? Or they had to know a little bit of what's going on?
The coaches knew, right? The coaches knew, my teammates knew, but it was like everything was internal. Like, this training staff, they knew, but everything was internal. But it was at that moment, like I said, I don't want to put the team at risk of losing, because I would feel shitty.
Was that a decision you made, or did a coach come and sit you down and talk to you, or the doctors or trainers, or was it like, hey, I got to do this for the team?
Ultimately, I made that decision.
Yeah.
I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep if that was, because that's super selfish.
Yeah.
And that's not the type of teammate I wanted to be remembered as.
Must have been a hard
And
decision to go make that, though. I mean, you're
terrible.
probably dancing with it for a few weeks, and then finally, what was it like to actually say, I'm not gonna play"?
It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. It was like I was at least battling with this for 5 weeks, probably 6, before we got to that playoff game.
Wow.
And when we got to that next round, that was the game. That was the Minnesota Miracle game, where Stephon Diggs had walked off with the last play of the game, touchdown, walk off win, and that was it for me. I was on the sideline. I didn't dress that game, but I knew that was probably my last time on the field.
Ever. Like the finality of your career.
Yeah, that I could feel that, because I knew that, once the season's over, that's when, you're supposed to go get the surgeries. So I knew it wasn't even a week later, I go get neck surgery. And then a month later, I go get hip surgery because I had arthritis in my hip. And in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, they didn't say I needed that surgery, but they said eventually I would. Right? So in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, if they're saying eventually I would, you might as well get both of them now and just rehab, this all season at the same time, instead of having to do it later and making it and potentially making it worse. So I made the decision to get both surgeries that off season, and I don't regret it. But that took everything out of me.
How
mentally.
intense were the surgeries? Like, did they take you down pretty good? Because I know there's a difference between like total knee reconstruction. I'm not familiar with the neck surgery, the hip.
Nah, the neck surgery wasn't like super bad. I didn't even come out with wearing a neck brace. Right? It was.
It's like go clean it up arthroscopically.
Yeah, clean it up. Because it was a bulging disc pinching the nerve, and they just had to kind of shave that disc down a little bit. To give it room to breathe, essentially. Like I said, I didn't come out wearing a neck cast or a brace or anything, so it wasn't that serious. And then the hip surgery, I was just on crutches for like 6 weeks. But it was tough because that coming out of neck surgery, I don't care how minimal it is, you're not going to be able to have that range of motion to, put your chin to your shoulder or put your chin to your chest or put your ear to your shoulder right away. So I was limited in range of motion, even though they recommended a brace, but I didn't want to walk around with a neck brace on just because of my ego.
Yeah.
And I was like, if you saying I don't, if it's not mandatory, I'm not wearing it. That was my, y'all would have to tell me that it's mandatory. And once they said nah, I was like, all right, I'm not wearing it then. Because I just didn't want people looking at me, with a neck brace on, asking all these questions, right? So now,
because that's a whole
crutches.
look too. Like when you're in the facility, it's not just the other teammates. It's the front office. It's the scouts. It's the management.
Bro.
It's people being like, "Is he good to go? He has a neck brace on." So you got to have this. The look of how you present yourself in the NFL locker room is so just as important as when you're playing on the field.
It's crazy. So all that's going on in my mind, I'm not able to, turn my shoulders. I got to turn my shoulders everywhere, and I'm on crutches. So that was a long off season for me, physically rehabbing, mentally, and then
what was the mindset like going through that? Was it focused on getting back on the field? Did you still have this feeling of this is like the kind of haunting? Is this going to be my last year? Talk about the mindset going through that recovery.
My mindset initially, I told myself I'm going to be comeback player of the year. I was like, that's the only way I'm gonna be able to make this work is if I set my mind on what this goal is, and we just gonna work towards that. So I knew I was gonna be comeback player of the year. I already envisioned, me at the ESPYs and receiving that award and NFL honors, and I was like, yeah, this is gonna be the greatest story ever told. already what it's, what I've been through, and now to see this part of it, I'm just like, yeah, like, let's go to it.
And it's
Um,
powerful to have that story, because because I remember creating those narratives, because you almost have to create this thing
you
to
have
go through
to.
the challenge that it takes to actually get back, like how much energy it takes to heal, to get your body back, to get all of the fine-tuned muscular structure and awareness it takes to play at that level. You need to have this focus of, I got to do this. I mean, it's so powerful that you've created that story for yourself. And then how did it help you show up each day for the healing process?
That was the motivator. That was the drive. But I think some of the things that came up for me was I didn't realize how much physical trauma was connected to mental trauma, connected to emotional trauma, connected to spiritual trauma. I didn't know all of that was tied in together. I used to view all of those as separate entities. And then this experience showed me that everything is um, beautifully intertwined and divine.
Was there specific things that were coming up mentally, emotionally, and spiritually during that process that you were like, whoa, there's something
Yeah,
here?
no, everything shut. Everything physically, my body was basically shut down. Mentally, I was overwhelmed more than I had ever been because, the Saints, they ended up releasing me, in that off season
After the
and
surgeries?
after the surgeries,
Did they give you
and
any
then
any kind of injury settlement, or did they just,
not at that time,
wow?
right? And they ended up signing me back right before the draft, right? So it was just a little cat and mouse game.
Mm.
And because also keep in mind, like, if I would have came back one more season, then I'd have been eligible to like go, test the market, right? Because I had been playing 1-year contracts this whole time, and this was, I think I was a restricted free agent. And I think coming up after one more season, I would have been unrestricted, and then I would have been able to test the market, see if, get like a 3-year deal somewhere, or 3 or 4 year deal somewhere, right? And secure some type of guarantee money, which I feel like I had earned, putting the sacrifices in, practice squad, I'm earning my way up the ranks. And so all that's in the back of my mind because I feel like I hadn't achieve that level of success, and to get the respect and credibility from my peers amongst the league who I've known, who have came in with me and some, who've seen me grow and mature. I felt like I missed that opportunity and that this injury was, preventing me from, you know, getting to that bag. So I'm mentally dealing with that. Um, Emotionally, I'm dealing with, you know, not being able to communicate how I'm feeling, to loved ones, to my caretakers at that time. Like I'm really vulnerable at this moment. I don't know how to express what I'm actually feeling and going through. So I'm internalizing all of it.
What was some of that
And
stuff you were internalizing? Do you remember the feelings that were coming up?
yeah, um, I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling scared because I didn't know I wasn't able to defend myself. I've had surgery before, right? I've had knee surgery before and I've been on crutches before. But this having neck surgery and hip surgery at the same time, that was the most vulnerable I've ever been. Um, and it was at a time where I was just like, man, like this is scary and I don't even know how to talk about this. Especially like after I got off the crutches, right? I'm still not, just because you get off crutches don't mean you can start running. Um, and the neck was still an issue. And so I'm like, I'm just walking like a regular civilian, and I just think like, man, like if something were to happen to you right now, you couldn't defend yourself. And you're already a target being, a large African American male, and you just look like you're aggressive, just if people just don't know you, just your presence when you enter the room. And so that was in the back of my mind as well. I'm just like, man, I don't feel
safe. Yeah, wow.
you know, and I didn't know how to express that, communicate that, you know, because we're just not taught how to do that.
Was there anything that you used or went to, or, you know, therapy or certain individuals, or were there any resources that the NFL provided, or did you have any awareness to even seek out support with all of this emotion and mental stress that you're feeling?
Not at that time. I didn't seek therapy, you know, probably to like another year later. I did have, you know, support system in my like internal network that that I could lean on, but it was, you know, it was limited. Not they were limited, but I was limited to, you know, what I was willing to share, if that makes sense.
Yeah, just holding on to it all.
It's holding on to it all, right? And then also with the neck thing, like I think I've had some type of PTSD because in college I saw a teammate get paralyzed. Eric LeGrand, he paralyzed my freshman year in college. I
Did this
saw
happen
it
on the field?
on the field.
On game day?
He running down on kickoff, and you know I think he was busting up the wedge, and he didn't get up, and he's still in the wheelchair till this day. You know,
Damn.
but he has a great story, great spirit. He's touched so many lives because of his story, right?
How did you process that back then? I mean, that's pretty powerful experience. I mean, you must have been 17, 18 years old at that time, huh?
Yep, I was probably like 18 on the sideline. And like I said, I was a redshirt freshman. So and he was probably like a junior I don't think he was a senior. He was probably like a junior at that time. So I really wasn't, you know, attached to him like, you know, on that level because I hadn't spent that much time. And
he was a
little
bit older and you just got to school. And
he was older and he was on defense. He was on the other side of the ball. So I really didn't spend a lot of time with him to build that connection. But I saw the impact that the rest of the team, you know, that it had on them, the coaches, his mother, like everybody. I was there for that. I remember that like it was yesterday. And so I got that visual playing in my head, and I just had a smaller surgery, right? And I'm realizing now my chances of, you know, potentially being paralyzed have increased dramatically if I decide to now go back out and compete, because you know this is a violent game that we play, and you know that there's a scouting report that has the injury updates on each player, right? And so if it got out that I had neck surgery, the defensive scouting report, right, says that this receiver, you know, he's gonna run across the middle. You know what I'm saying? He has neck surgery. I'm not telling you what to do, but do with that information what you will. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, how can I go out there and not be timid and not be, you know, and if you go out there and play timid, you actually making it worse.
Yeah, you have a real opportunity to hurt yourself in a big way, even worse.
So I'm battling, like, I really want to come back because I really want to secure this opportunity to, you know, really set myself up and earn, you know, get what I've earned. But how can I go back with the risk of, you know, putting my life on the line, putting my freedom to move, you know, and live? Like, that was battling with me. That was weighing heavy on me. You know, I was in a relationship at the time and I didn't know how to communicate what was going on. Having, you know, to be honest, being transparent, like I said, I had surgery on my hip. I didn't know before I had the surgery how that was going to impact my sex life after the surgery. I wasn't thinking about that at all. I'm just thinking all like football lens. But then after that, I was like, oh shoot, that just messed with my whole like.
Did that impact your relationship, your own personal experience?
Yeah,
Talk about that a little bit. I mean, were you guys not able to have sex for a while and then it just disconnect you guys energetically?
We weren't able to have sex for in the beginning for a while. I remember the first time I tried, and I was just I felt so embarrassed. Now she was a partner who I could say anything to, right? But I just didn't know how to do it. I was so like embarrassed. I didn't know how to, start that conversation. Obviously, she knew I had surgery, right? So that wasn't a surprise, but it was still like, yeah, it was an elephant in the room that I didn't know how to, to begin to address that. And then yes, it was a disconnect energetically, and I'm in my own head, which I was already, before the surgery, and then it just became worse, and I literally shut down. Um, and I I did not have the tools in my toolbox that I have now to be able to, use them in those moments to be able to pull me back. And when I say I shut down and I say I folded, um, because that was when life hit me, right? Everything that could hit me was hitting me at that moment. And like I said, from every different angle, emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And I just did not have the tools necessary to fight back. Like I just didn't. I folded. I literally, you know, turned my back on my partner at that time and isolated myself. And didn't give her, any warning, didn't give her like I said, any communication of what I was doing. I just knew that I needed to go through this. I knew I was going through something and I needed to go through it by myself, and I didn't. My logic was I didn't want to take her down with me. I'm like, this isn't your fight. This is something I got to deal with. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I don't know how to communicate that. And obviously, like I said, I didn't say any of that in the moment. I just left.
It must have been a hard decision to make, and not knowing how to communicate, and just like, I just got to get out.
That was terrible. That was terrible. And it was just like also just how it made her feel, right? Because, I cared about her deeply, but it was also, painful to know that I caused that pain for her because I didn't know how to show up, as a partner at that time. But, all of it was a learning lesson for me, but it definitely taught me a lot about myself.
What were some of the biggest lessons you learned from that experience, and like, how would you handle it differently if you went through a similar experience with the tools and what you know now?
I think the biggest takeaway was, the willingness to be vulnerable, especially if you have, a partner there who's willing to go there, to go down this journey with you, right? They accept you, in the light and when the lights are off, right? She was someone who did not care about the fact that I played in the NFL, right? The status, that none of that mattered to her. She cared about, just my overall well-being. And that was something that, I was grateful for. But I think the lesson would be now is to just take that mask off. That mask of feeling like I have to have it all figured out, feeling like I'm too good to allow anybody else to help me out in this moment, right? Allow yourself to receive love. I think that was one of the biggest things. I didn't know how to receive love in that space where I was, scared. And just in the tools in my toolbox now, I'm like, all right, bro, like you can be vulnerable with yourself, and you can also be vulnerable with your partner. But if you can't be vulnerable with yourself or your partner, then you need to make some decisions, like why isn't that you can't, right? Because you should always be able to be vulnerable with yourself and with your partner, who you choose.
Oh man. So pulling away from her and really going all into, I need to figure this thing out, so much bigger than you can probably even comprehend at the moment. And does all that energy go into rehab, but you're still dancing with this, am I going to be able to play with my neck? I feel unsafe out there, not able to protect myself. What does this mean for my career? So how do you start processing towards the end of your career with this
So
intensity?
all my energy now is going to rehab. I invested, you know, I invested like my resources into, outside trainers. And I think I put a team together, like 3 people, that, did body work, that did, the physical therapy, and just the conditioning part that helped me get ready to get back for training camp. And when training camp came, I didn't pass the physical, but the coach was telling me that, stick around. Maybe we can, call you up towards the end of the season. It's a long season. He said, just, we'll keep, keep an eye out on you. So, I'm still in New Orleans, but I'm not at the team locker room. I'm not any, I'm not in the locker room, I'm not in the training room. I'm on like off-site, general, like civilian rehab center,
How does that feel to get that call and be out on your own?
It was uncomfortable, right? Because now I'm like, I go from being in a situation where I'm with my brothers in the locker room, even if it's in the rehab, right? You still with your brothers, people who walk the same path and understand what you're going through. But then when you go to, a civilian rehab center and you're the only athlete that's in there, and you just happen to be a Saints player that's recognizable, that everybody in there, can identify, and it's just like so much more pressure, and uncomfortable because everybody else is watching that process. And for me, it was just like, all right, this is just what I got to do. But all my energy, all my resources was going to making my way to come back, right? To help them continue to, to go deep in the playoffs. And I had visualized, me coming back and making a touchdown catch in the dome, right, during the playoffs and going to, I visualized all of that, and it just never happened. They got deep. They would continue to win, right? So they were putting themselves in position to win that year, because the following year we came off 8-0 winning streak and we were rolling. So the train was going to keep rolling with or without me on the field anyways, and it kept rolling. And so it would hurt to see them continue to have success and I wasn't a part of it, continue to go into the playoff that following year, and the thought of, damn, what if they actually win this thing and I'm not a part of this? And like I would just feel like, those thoughts start coming to mind. Like I would feel like the end of the world, because I felt like I had sacrificed so much to be a part of that championship run, and to when it came down to it, I wasn't able to actually be remembered, right, in that way. So those thoughts are coming to my head. And then when I realized that, I wasn't going to be back in time, I had Drew Brees reached out to me. He called me, and I was at my crib, and I realized that this was the conversation that needed to be had. And I told him, I said, man, I did everything I could, to get back and make myself available, to be a part of this run with y'all. And, I was just telling him, man, I'm sorry I couldn't, make it back for y'all. And, he reaffirmed me of the role that I played on that team and how proud he was of me and my journey, and how grateful he was to have me as a teammate, and how much he respected me. And he reminded me of the silver lining in these situations. And those were very encouraging words at the time when I'm literally on the phone crying. And because I'm realizing that this is it. I'm realizing that, like, in that moment, that this is it. And for him to reach out, because he didn't have to, for him to reach out, say those words, and and give me that peace that I could, that would help me eventually end up walking away on my own terms. That played a huge role into, like I said, the ultimate decision to hang the cleats up, because I was now at peace with my journey. I realized that, yeah, it didn't play out the way I wanted to, but man, I had a hell of a run. Man, I had a hell of a story. Man, I had a hell of an experience that so many people would love to have felt, you know?
Damn, son. So
Yeah.
that's a powerful experience. I mean, having a conversation with Drew Brees in that moment, as you're having this conversation and him really being able to hold space for you and all the emotions that are present, was it in that moment, in that conversation, the reality of it started sinking in? And what was the uncoupling process from this identity? Because it's not just, doesn't just happen in a moment. There can be a big flood of like knowing that this is finally it. How did you continue to process that after that phone call?
My dog was with me at the time. I had a Connie Corso, an Italian Mastiff, and he consoled me, for that moment after the call. Like, he knew I was sad. He came up and like cuddled with me, and obviously no words are said, but it's just like that energy that I needed to realize that I wasn't alone in that moment, to realize that you know, I could be loved unconditionally in that moment, and that went a long way for me. And so, that's why his name is Ace, and so that's why I called him my Ace. And he was there for me in a very tough moment for me, and it was something that I eventually had to call my parents and let them know about the phone call, and that was tough. That was heavy. And just processing the fact, like, wow, bro, like, just recapping my whole career. Like I said, like, who would have thought that it would have panned out like this, right? And just really just finding gratitude in so many of the moments, right? So many of the opportunities, the experiences, the teammates, and just coming to peace with. I was able to walk away ultimately because I was at peace with how I played the game. I knew I never cheated the game. I knew I gave the game everything I had, and I knew my teammates and my coaches respected me, right? Everybody didn't have to like me, but they respected me for the type of teammate I was. And I was like, you know what? That holds more weight than anything else to me, right? Because not everybody could say that. I took pride in being a damn good teammate on and off the field at every level of the game. So, in order to take a look at, this was all going down when I was 26 years old. So, to take a look at that moment, to realize that I had started playing the game I fell in love with at 6 years old, to now, wrapping it up after an NFL career at 26 years old, I was like, bro, you gave the game 20 years of your life. That's a hell of a story, King. Like, I had to just, look at that, and give myself my flowers. And like I said, I was able to come to peace with it.
It's powerful, man. That's so good to be able to let the game go in that way, knowing that you gave everything you had to the game. Because I feel the same way I played, and I'm really grateful for that experience and being able to own that. And there's still a deep uncoupling process that happens. And you talked about not being as tapped into your emotional awareness and your mental health. And I know you've been vocal about some of the mental health stuff that you've gone through since then, and kind of finding who you are and reconnecting with this deeper connection within yourself and your spirituality. Talk about the importance of that moment and that transition, and where it took you from there. Was there some challenges that you faced, and kind of what experience you went through to propel you on this deeper journey of healing?
So the transition now is from, the NFL to what's next, right? To that next chapter, to that second act. I had zero idea what that was going to be at the time. And I do remember that same year I'm rehabbing in the season. I do remember like me catching this entrepreneurial bug, right? I'm subscribing to the Entrepreneur magazine. I'm watching all the reruns of Shark Tank. I'm just,
Same,
getting,
son. Let's go.
I'm getting the, all the entrepreneur books for dummies, all the yellow books. Like I'm just interested in what this next chapter could look like. And I start exploring, different things that I might be passionate about off the field, and started to become curious. But at the same time, I started the journey of, exploring meditation and yoga. I was introduced to yoga through another previous partner, and meditation came shortly after that.
Did you just
And
start
then
going to yoga classes with her? Was she like in your ear, like, "Hey, come do this
Nah,
with me"? Or?
she was an actual like instructor,
Mm.
right? She was a facilitator. And so she would, I wasn't going to like her classes, but she'd work with a lot of like athletes, like body work and stretching and things of that nature. So that was I was around that. I was exposed to that now, and now I had somebody I could use as a resource to help me, in that phase, in that season of my life. And it was also, a catalyst on that journey as well. And then, like I said, I get exposed to, meditation as another tool for my toolbox, but really didn't have any, structural guidance on where to even begin. But I realized at that moment that there was a huge lack of diversity in voices in that space. And that didn't sit well with me initially. Like, I'm like, why is it that, everywhere I'm looking on all the apps, Calm, YouTube, right? All the major platforms where you can find meditations. Everybody sounds the same. Everybody looks the same.
Yeah, that's
And
fascinating.
and I was just like, is that it? Is that all I have to choose from? Is that all I have to select? These options? And not really understanding that this was the opportunity for me to now create that lane, for me to be that change agent, for me to use my voice as a gift, because I didn't know that my voice was a gift, right? And stepped up to the plate and started to put my own practice into play by allowing myself to take off like to remove that stereotype that society has placed on someone who looks like me and sounds like me to operate in this wellness space, and not be ashamed or not feel like that imposter syndrome, because that was something I felt immediately out the gate. I'm like, bro, who do you think you are coming into this space just because you got a voice? Think you can guide a meditation, right? You don't have any formal training. You never been to a silent retreat. You didn't study overseas under
Some
such
guru.
and such. Yeah, like you know what I'm saying? Who do you
Yeah.
think you are? So I'm dealing with that as well.
That's a big story I think a lot of people face. I know I faced it. It's like I'm just like nodding my head over here like, yep, yep. How did you move through that? Because I think in our society and culture is such a big story of you need a certification, you need a training, you need to be like approved by some entity to show up and hold space for other people.
How did I move through that? I think I'm still moving through that. To be honest, I don't think I've like all the way moved through it or passed through it, right? I'm passing it one day at a time. I think acknowledging it was the first thing, right? At first I was kind of in denial about imposter syndrome because I'm going from doing something that I did for 20 years and being extremely confident in that and an expert in that to something that I'm just starting out and I'm at the infancy stage. And now I want to, put myself as, or, paint myself as a facilitator or a practitioner, whatever title makes other people feel comfortable, in this space, sure. But I think it just is taking me to name it. I just had to name it and not allow it to, suffocate me in silence.
Hell yeah, man. Talk a little bit about, I found this very fascinating, just the perspective of kind of going down this yoga meditation path and then waking up to there's not a real like African American community involved in at least the major platforms that are supporting this movement. Right. Talk about that a little bit and how that's impacted you, and because I see your content and the way you're stepping into this, and I'm sure you're having a massive impact on the communities that you are impacting, making it more accessible to more people, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, so I think initially I felt like, man, where's my tribe? Where's the tribe that looks like me? Where's the tribe that sounds like me? And then at the same time, the women were leading the space, especially like Black women. They're killing the game in terms of, of representation from facilitators. And then it became an issue of where are the men? Where are the masculine men in this space? Where are the men that are attached to the wellness space? Like a lot of them identify as homosexual, right? That's something I did not identify as, and I feel like if I did step into that space, then wow, like now I had to check myself, right? Am I secure enough with who I am to be confident to move in this space, even though I am not the majority like I was in the locker room? You know what I'm saying? So now it's completely inverse. And
yeah, it requires a deep, creating a safety within yourself to step into that continuously.
Yeah. I had to really find that balance within myself, right? And the balance of, when I say balance of the energies, right, in me, right? Everybody, men and women, have masculine and feminine energy in them, right? And I think a lot of us don't acknowledge that we do have both. And most of society operates out of our masculine energy, out of our fight or flight, nervous system, and women included, right? And they feel like they have to be that energy in spaces, right, to speak up for themselves, and they don't know how, they can't afford to, right, channel that feminine energy because they don't feel protected, because they don't feel safe. The list can go on. But for me, I had to realize I need to start tapping into my feminine energy, right? That allowed my healing process to now, accelerate, because I was able to be more compassionate with myself, because I was able to be more nurturing, because I was able to be more empathetic, I was able to be more gentle, I was able to be more kind, I was able to channel these emotions to allow myself the space to heal and now integrate this masculine and feminine energy into one being, and just being comfortable with just being in this space. And now, I think that I've gotten to a point where I am. It doesn't matter if I'm the only male in the room, right? It doesn't matter if like any of that because I'm now comfortable in myself.
Yeah, and it's interesting because using the feminine energy to balance out the masculine, and even like football in the locker room and the culture of football it's a representation of our system and systemic issues that we face with that unhealthy, immature masculine energy of
Mm.
you know greed and power and kind of accomplishment at all costs, and really trying to prove ourselves, and then having to learn and alchemize that energy into this healthy masculine energy within that is really just creating safety and being able to feel safe within yourself and being able to feel safe in these experiences. Was there anything from the time with football, because you talked about the time in your relationship with your partner where you didn't feel safe to share these deeper feelings and what you're moving through, and now where you're at, really learning to embody that safety within yourself? Were there specific experiences you went through that really helped that healing process specifically, or was it a slow unfolding with practices like yoga and meditation?
I think it was a slow unfolding. I think I often tell the story that it felt like breadcrumbs was being laid out on the trail for me, that I just had to, pick one up and just keep picking one up, and to keep, guiding me down this journey, this path to where I am now, right? So the first breadcrumb was yoga, and that seed was planted, many years ago, but it was over time, it continued to get watered and nurtured until I got to a place where I wanted to actually accept it and not resist it. And then the next one was meditation, right? I pick up that seed, I pick up that breadcrumb, and I keep walking, and I continue to explore and be curious, right? I think that's what it comes down to. Meditation helps me be more curious, and it helps me create space between my thoughts. It helps me create space between, the attachment to, anything. And the next breadcrumb was breath work. I really understood that breath work was the foundation of yoga and the foundation, of, meditation practice, right? They always talk about, bring your awareness to your breath. And I used to just not give the breath, I used to take it for granted, and I did not give it the value that it actually deserved, right? Everybody who's listening to this podcast right now has breath in their lungs, right? Everybody who woke up this morning has breath in their lungs, and we take that for granted, and how powerful that energy, that life force energy is inside of us. Because when we don't have breath in our lungs, we're not living.
Yeah, it's so
Right?
simple, right? The breath
It's
is
so
literally, it
simple.
all comes back to the breath. And it's so fascinating that we're not ever taught this simple
We're
tool.
not taught. We're not taught, right? And so for me, that was the next eye-opening thing, that I went down that rabbit hole. And then the next breadcrumb that I say was sound. I discovered sound as a healing modality, right? And I
Frequency of
didn't
sound. Tell us about that.
frequency of sound changed the game for me. I remember the first time I heard a buffalo drum. You ever heard a buffalo drum
Yeah, I got
before?
one. Those like
So yeah,
meditation drum.
yeah,
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 drum
yeah,
kits.
yeah. So I remember I did a Reiki session, a group Reiki session with some former NFL players, and they the facilitator, she was guiding us, vocally, and then, I'm laying there, eyes closed, and all of a sudden I hear this thump, this vibration from this drum. And at the time I didn't know what type of drum it was, but I do remember that was an awakening within. Something unlocked at that moment. Something like the door opened to my soul at that point. And I was just able to be so curious from that moment on, to feel that vibration through my rib cage, travel through my body. And I just had never experienced anything like that before. And so after that moment, I went down the rabbit hole of of studying sound and understanding, you know, the power of sound and how we're designed as sound wave entities, right? The fact that we have a heartbeat, the fact that we have eardrums, the fact that we have internal organs, we're already wired to a certain frequency. And just like piano, just like guitars, other instruments can be tuned, so can we, right? I didn't understand that value, that connection, how that could be healing, right? Through certain frequencies and certain instruments and intention, right? That's where the healing actually takes place when you merge sound plus intention. Um, and then I realized, right, that's what music is. That's why music is so healing to the soul, right? When you hear a song that you haven't heard in over a decade, but you remember exactly where you were, the
Yeah.
emotions that it evokes, right? The memories that come up, right? That's how powerful music is. And this is the same, thing, right? But this is also reminding me that our ancestors have been, using sound as medicine for centuries, right? For ages, right? That's what drum circles are sound therapy. It's sound therapy, right? They used to dance and they used to clap and they used to use their instruments, they used to sing, right? That's a form of sound healing. And for me, I think what happened was when I say that door was unlocked, it was unlocked for me to remember who I've been in a different lifetime, to unlock the remembrance of who I'm called to be now in this season, right? And to like walk in my purpose. And so
Mm.
using all those gifts, and learning how to channel that, learning how to open, be confident in that. And yeah, that's the transit. That's been a transition for sure.
Oh man, I'm so proud of you, dude. Going
I
down and taking
appreciate it.
that journey inward and allowing the remembering. I love how you said that, the remembrance of who I am and what I'm here to do. I feel like I've been on a very similar journey, and that's why I'm so grateful for being confronted with such a massive identity shift so early in life, because it's allowed
Mm,
me now, like yourself, I'm sure, with this opportunity to go deeper into who we are, as opposed to the normal kind of career path is, most people aren't reaching this level until they're middle age and having the middle age crisis and like, wait, who am I? And the ability to
right.
have that experience at such a young age, and then for you to go into the depths of it, even though it's an uncomfortable thing, and it's, you're not really probably feeling safe with not feeling like, a lot of African Americans in this community and feeling connected to that, and still having the courage to step into that and allow yourself to be curious and awaken, and now being able to alchemize that into being a voice to bringing this medicine to more people. Because I love what you said, like our ancestors, like we are
Mm-hmm.
the same, we're one,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
sound connects us in that way. I'm vibrating right now. It's so cool to connect with the frequency of sound and the language of sound, because it's universal.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's so powerful, man. And like you said, that oneness, um, that's what soul represents, right? It's an acronym. I got it from Tony Dungy, but I modified it a little bit. He had a book called Soul of a Team, and he put out an acronym for the word soul, and that inspired me to create mine, which was seeking oneness using love. So we talk about that oneness, right? Oneness of thought, oneness of love, oneness consciousness, right? Of sound, everything, right? Is one breath. It's that's the journey.
Oh man, talk about the journey of sound leading into
Mm,
the the tracks that you created, like a very unique,
yeah.
one of a kind sound structure of meditation slash music. Talk about the album you put out not too long ago. I think they said it's a 1 year anniversary coming up.
Yeah, we just hit the 1 year anniversary of the Meditation Mixtape Volume 1. That's on all streaming platforms. And that's something that I was inspired to create. during the pandemic, like I said, I saw that there was a lack of diversity and voices in this space, and I didn't know that I had, create the creativity inside of me to write, like poetry, and turn that into guided meditation just by slowing my cadence down to how I delivered, the message, and just the freedom to actually create was just so healing and rewarding, right? Because ultimately I did it so that I could have something that I could listen to, every day, right? I wanted something that I could vibe out to. I wanted something that, that this is how I want to meditate, because I realized that it doesn't always have to look a certain way. It doesn't always have to sound a certain way. And that's what's oftentimes discouraging others from being open-minded to it, because it looks a certain way, because it sounds a certain way, because they don't see themselves or hear themselves in it. Then they can't, I don't want to say can't, but they're not allowing themselves to actually see themselves in it or hear themselves in it, right? There's a gap, and then I wanted to be that entryway. I wanted to be that, another way to plant that seed for some others who can be like me, could be like, I don't know, right? So I was strategic about calling it a mixtape, because in our culture, like when you hear a mixtape, you already associate that with something of a comfort zone, right? And so you kind of, um, put that spin on it by saying meditation mixtape. And it kind of just softens it up a little bit, but you're still curious. And I just wanted people to be curious about it. And so for me, it was an opportunity to, create from scratch. I had, two people in my network that were able to, give me access to their studio, who believed in it, from the engineering and then the live instrument. I had one of my good men, shout out J&B Music and Spaceman, who played the live saxophone on some of the tracks. And so because I'm an old soul, because I grew up listening to smooth jazz, 105.9, the Quiet Storm, because I grew up on that type frequency, I knew that I wanted to vibe to some meditations that had some soul music, a saxophone. I'm like, bro, I reached out to my guy. I said, bro, I know this sound crazy, and I know you on your R&B with the saxophone vibe. You know what I'm saying? You killing it, but I got this idea. If you could play, side by side with my voice on these guided meditations, I feel like that'd be a game changer. I feel like that's not something that, people are exposed to. I'm not even sure if it's something that already exists or not. But I do know that the flow between you and I will go crazy. And sure enough, he believed in me. We got in the studio, we cooked it up. And that was like first time I've been in the studio ever, right?
That must have felt good, like a whole new experience to be able to do that, but do it with this more intention.
That was a whole new game field for me. I'm like, man, but I treated it with that same intention, right? How I show up as a professional, with intention, to create something that could be, that's bigger than me, right? For all of us to come together, use our gifts, use our superpowers to create something that's bigger than all of us.
Yeah, I think this is really important, because to create something, especially a new type of sound and mixing genres where it's like music, mixtape, meditation, and intention, and using the cadence and the power of the voice to program the subconscious mind through the guided visualizations, but bringing in the sound and the music in this very unique way and doing something that's never been done before. I mean, as an artist, like you're an artist and you're being able to create. And I love what we talked about before the show, because you talked about the 1 year anniversary of releasing this thing, and it not being about, because there's I think nowadays, a big attachment to the numbers, the growth, the virality, making sure it's all about getting millions of downloads, even with this podcast. I mean, I've learned to understand the power that impacting one life can really
Mm-hmm.
have, and to really have the courage to say, it's not about that. It's about getting out there and creating this new sound and impacting one life at a time. I just think that's so profound for people to understand is if you have something on your heart and an idea and a vision, go get out there and create it.
I've heard this. I've heard this before, and I'm summarizing it because it connects to what you just said. Like, if you have something on your heart, and this is for whoever's listening to this, if you have something on your heart and that you feel like you're hesitant about sharing with the world for whatever reason, right? Just know that somebody else is waiting on you to do what you are supposed to do so they can do what they're supposed to do, right?
Damn.
Had I not shared this gift, something that was burning in my heart, had I not shared this gift, so many people would not have been impacted in the way that they have been to catapult them on their journey, right? To discovering, whatever it is that they needed to discover for themselves on their journey at this time, right? But don't allow the voices in your head to hold you back or to hold you hostage from, walking in your purpose and creating what you and only you can create.
Mm. Talk about your bigger purpose, and that, taking it back to that buffalo drum and the
Mm-hmm.
reverberation in your heart and the awakening that you felt and this remembrance and this knowing of a deeper purpose. Because a lot of times people think that deeper purpose is like, oh, it's the game plan and strategy has been laid out for me right then, but it's more of a
Mm.
feeling and a calling to continue on the path, which requires a deep trust and faith in following what the next step is. Talk about connecting with that deeper purpose, what you felt, and where it's calling you now.
I think you hit the nail on the head by saying it's calling. I think a lot of people have, you know, expressed gratitude for me for answering the call. And they specifically say, thank you for answering the call, right? You just mentioned that calling that you hear, right? In order for you to hear a calling, you got to be still and you got to be silent. And it took time for me to practice how to be comfortable being still and being silent, because that's when you really can hear what God is communicating with you with. The universe is communicating with you with source, whomever you identify to communicate with you when you're still and when you're silent. And in those moments of silence and stillness, that's when I was able to hear the whispers, in the wind to move me and move my spirit in the way that it's moving now. Um, the sound, like I said, from the drum to the crystal bowls to the chimes to the Himalayan bowls, right? All of these sounds, they provide different frequencies, and together, you know, they come in harmony, and they have the opportunity to bring your mind, body, and spirit in alignment. And I think, the calling for me, the larger purpose for me right now is just to continue to be that um, change agent, to continue to plant the seeds, right? To introduce people who most likely wouldn't have been intrigued or curious until someone who looked like me and sounded like me and had a background like me would come up and stand in front of them and tell them the same thing that somebody else has already told them. But because it's coming from, this vessel, because that's all I am. I am a vessel. Because it's coming from this vessel, they're more open-minded to receiving what it is that I have to say, or what it is that I have to offer. And the larger purpose is, for me to be that light, to advance the kingdom of heaven, to use these gifts um, to be a servant, right? And to offer healing in that way, not just for myself, but for others.
Yeah, dude, that's so freaking powerful. And I think that's what it is, man. The world is ready for a new type of role model. And in
Mm.
order to be a role model is to embody it and
Yeah, that's it.
the
That's it. The
energetics of what that
embodiment.
takes.
The embodiment of all of this, right? It doesn't, just because I'm talking about these practices, doesn't mean that I'm above, the feelings of anxiety or depression or overwhelmingness, right? That doesn't mean that at all. I experience those emotions quite frequently throughout my days, right? I just now have the awareness of different um, holistic tools that I could use to help me navigate and transmute that energy of anxiety, of depression, right? Of into something that's positive and that can be effective for others.
Talk about your spiritual connection, because
Mm-hmm.
and maybe your upbringing a little bit with what you were taught, what your belief structure kind of was, because you're using some language
Mm-hmm.
that, I think going through the process of yoga and finding presence and stillness and connecting with your own inner world, there's deeper truths that are revealed to us, and it kind of breaks down the need for a belief structure, and it connects with a deeper knowing and connection to spirit and that own personal connection. Did you always have a sense of that personal connection, or has this been something that has really evolved and transformed over the last few years?
I think growing up with the foundation in the church, as a Christian, with and believing in Christ and knowing that He died for our sins and everything. Like having that as a foundation was this. I think the start that I needed to get me to where I'm at now, because I know that I can always come back to that as a foundation. And as I've continued to grow and evolve my awareness, my understanding, the knowing of who I truly am and my connection to spirit, my connection to the God in me, right? I really didn't understand back in the day when the artist Mary, gospel artist, had the song called "The God in Me," and that was like a popular song. It's the God in me, and that was the hook, right? And I never really understood what that meant until recently, right? Because I realized, growing up, I felt like everybody, if you identified yourself as God, then that meant you were, it was like pagan, or you were, mocking God, right?
That's
But we just
blasphemy. You're not God.
blasphemy,
Only
right?
Jesus is God.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I think I was so confused at that point. And then also it went over my head that they even said like God created you in His image and in His likeness. And I was now I realized, wow, I do feel the God in me. I do feel that I was created in His image and in His likeness. I do feel like the Spirit is living through me, that I'm a reflection of that which I seek. Because seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. And so if I continue to seek that, then I will reflect that. And so that when others see me, that they see the light, they see Christ in me. I'm at a point, because I grew up and all the images of Christ did not look like me. And, I didn't really understand that until I got older and I started realizing like this was, strategic. And and in order to keep the religion safe, right? That this had to be the narrative. And then I started growing away from the religion and started connecting more to my relationship with Christ and understanding that um, it's not as actually like a person. It's the consciousness. It's the awareness. It's the love, and that didn't have that, to me, that surpasses all religion, right? It doesn't, I respect, Muslims, Jewish culture, Buddhist, um, however you identify, as your whatever's comfortable for you, right? I understand it, I respect it, but at the same time, I also realize that there's just one. There's just one, right? And I had another guy tell me, he said, his comment was more geared towards like fraternities and sororities. He was like, he was of a different fraternity. He was just saying like, man, if you do choose anything, just know at the end of the day, we all choosing different paths to get to the same place. So I was just like, and I looked at that from like the religion standpoint, right? Everybody, you can choose, a different path that works for them, right? That speaks to them in this season. And you're not, I don't want people to feel like they are boxed into only having to be, relate to or study or practice more than one religion, right? I think there's stigma on that as well, but we're all going to the same place, and it's just coming back to that oneness, right? And for me, over time, like I've been able to continue to build my relationship daily. My man, in prayer, I was already had a strong prayer life, but I think once I got the meditation piece, that was the missing link, because in communication and relationship, right, there's two forms, right? You got to be able to talk, and then you got to be able to listen. Prayer, I was doing all the talking, but I didn't know how to listen. And meditation taught me how to listen, and to hear that dialogue, to hear that communication, that strengthened my relationship with spirit, with God and me.
Beautiful, man. Like, well said. What does that connection feel like? Like when you find stillness and you go inward, how do you connect with the energy of the greater self?
What does it feel like? It feels familiar. It feels familiarity is the word that is coming up for me, and it feels like when I do connect to that stillness and I do drop into that, um, my higher self, I feel like in alignment with where I feel like I'm here now for a reason. And it's a beautiful awareness to be able to connect to that, because it was times where I didn't even know that existed in me, and it was right inside of me. It's not like I had to go far, right? But I did have to go far, But if right now, like, and it feels like it's like it also feels very, you know, beginner. Like I'm getting the manual to a new hypermodel, car, and I need to, um, make myself aware of how the user manual, like, how do you operate this machine? How do you operate, this divine God body that you've been blessed with, right? Now let's really get the party started. Like now that you've, connected to the hardware, right? That, we've been waiting. It's like we've been waiting for you to make this connection. Now that we're here, it's like, like the movie Avatar, right? You connect the hair to the hair tied to the tail. Right now you become one. And that oneness within is what it feels like.
Beautiful. Yeah, what are we actually capable of? I feel like we're just
What
starting to
are
even
we
scratch the surface.
just scratching the surface, bro? If you could do all this in the last 3 years, and you had no experience before this, but this is what you've been able to do, you are literally just scratching the surface. You are figuring this out as you go. You're creating this lane for yourself, carving this out literally as you go. So it's going to continue to unfold, and it's just a matter of time.
Circling back to your career, talk about the the journey you've been on and the alchemization of that football career into this deeper journey of spirituality. Because I know for me, that journey really taught me so much, and it's helped me deepen my connection with spirit and my ability to handle failure and let go and
Mm.
learn and connect, like all these intangible things that I really trained in such a hard way during my football career, being able to alchemize those lessons and expand them as real gifts in my life now. Talk about that journey for you and the impact that your career's had on this deeper revealing within yourself.
Man, I'm grateful for the experiences that I had during my playing career. Even though it felt like now I look back, it feels like I was, just going through the motions. I was present and I was going through the motions, doing what I had to do to just get the job done, right? And the transition to where I'm at now, to be able to uh, alchemize that, is harnessing that energy, right? I feel like the awareness of, I wish I did have this awareness while I was playing. I know some guys are still playing, do have that awareness. And, I found myself, living through them, if you will, right? I see guys normalizing meditating before the game and warm-ups, right? I see guys, actually like breaking that stigma, and I love it. And I'm like, wow, this is dope to see this generation continue to evolve. And I think the biggest thing for me is to be able to share that with this next generation. So like one of the questions I get asked all the time is, knowing what you know now, what would you, tell your younger self, whether it's high school or college, right? What advice would you give? What is one of those things that you think that I need to know to help me get to the next level? And now I'm able to say with confidence, right? Like, it's the connection between your mind and body. And right, and what is that connection? What is that bridge? It's your breath, right? We grew up and we were raised in that this game was 90% mental and 10% physical. But we're investing 90% into that 10% physical and investing 10% into that 90% mental. That's backwards. And I want to be I want to be a part of that generation that can start to and understand why it is critical for us to now understand the connection between our mind and our body. Because I told you how powerful my mind was. I was ready to come back from neck surgery and be comeback player of the year. And I was going to will myself to that point because that's because what my mind was telling me to do. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, just imagine if I put that energy and focus to anything, like I could have that, I could create that, right? And it starts within my mind, right? We visualize so much, but we really don't understand how powerful our visualizations can be.
Thanks, all Cole, man. I really, really deeply appreciate your words of wisdom, your journey, for opening your heart, taking the time, sharing your story. I know you're really showing up in offering your own practice and continuing to deepen that. So maybe share a little bit about the services you provide and where people can find you.
Yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity, man, to drop in with you as always. This has been an honor for me, especially to know someone who's walked in the same locker room and is on this similar path of growing and doing the work. So I salute you. And thank you for, allowing me to reach out to your, speak to your audience. And you guys can continue to follow me, Soul Cole, thebrand.com, Instagram, B_Cole16. Some of the, services, that I offer as a as a flow facilitator, right? I'm now a health and wellness coach. I'm also a sound healing practitioner as well, a certified breath coach. Um, Overall, I just want to put myself in that, wellness consultant role. I started doing, some corporate stuff like, workplace wellness. So that's also in my, in my jam now. And I'm my artist as well, right? So I got the meditation mixtape volume 1. Like I said, it's on all streaming platforms. Affirmations and ad libs, that's on all streaming platforms as well. So definitely tap in with me. I would love to, connect with you and, continue to just follow my journey, follow my story, because this is just the beginning, man.
Beautiful. Thank you. That will all be in the show notes. Really appreciate the time, Soul Cole, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in, for listening, for watching, wherever you're watching this. If you want to hit the follow, subscribe, there's just these conversations just keep getting better, and I don't want you guys to miss. If you feel called to support the podcast, the best way to do that is to leave a 5-star review, say some nice words. Definitely check out what Soul Cole's working on, and I would love to hear from you all as well. We got a link for the newsletter sign up. I'm putting out those weekly as well. And if there's something in this story, words of inspiration that touched your heart, and if anybody in your life came up into your awareness as you were listening to this that you think this conversation might impact their life in a positive way, go ahead and share it with them. That's really what this podcast is all about, is really helping support the collective and all of us and really finding the deeper truths within ourselves. Soul Cole, thanks, brother. Really appreciate you.
I appreciate you, brother.
All right, peace.